I'm pretty sure I'm not going to live like my parents. I don't mean that in a rude way. They're fine. They just always look tired, like they're carrying invisible bags that nobody else can see. I watch them in the mornings. Mom standing by the window with her coffee, Dad looking for his keys even though they're always in the same drawer. And I tell myself, that won't be me. When I grow up, I'll know exactly where my things are, and I won't sigh before going to work. I'll pick a job that makes me excited, like building secret machines or drawing comic books that make kids laugh. Something fun. Something that doesn't make your shoulders droop. Right now I'm 8, which feels like the age when you're almost a real person, but not really. I still have to ask before eating ice cream, but I'm allowed to cross the street alone if I look both ways twice. My room smells a little like crayons and a little like the lemon spray Mom uses when she's annoyed. I like lying on the floor and imagining my future house. It has huge windows and soft lamps, and nobody ever says, "Not today, I'm busy," because I'm never busy in that future. I have time. I have so much time. When I think about being a grown-up, I imagine freedom. Like, I'll eat dinner whenever I want. Midnight cereal is definitely going to be a thing. And I'll travel, maybe to a place with tall mountains or a city where no one knows me. I won't be scared of anything by then. Right now, I'm scared of a lot of things. Losing my backpack, being the last kid picked in PE, Mom getting sick, Dad getting angry in that quiet way where he doesn't look at anyone. Sometimes I hear adults say, life is complicated, but I don't really get what they mean. To me, complicated means math homework with too many steps. I figure if I try hard enough, I can avoid whatever complicated means for them. I promise myself small things, like, I won't yell the way Dad does when he's frustrated. I won't give up on hobbies after 2 weeks the way Mom does. I won't work at a job I hate just because it's easier. I'll listen to people more. I'll keep friends forever. I'll talk honestly. I'll stay brave. I'll stay curious. I'll stay the version of me that's not afraid of turning into someone else. And I think being happy as an adult just means being yourself, but taller. That's what I think. That you keep your favorite things, your dreams, your imagination, the stuff that makes you feel like you're glowing inside, and you don't let them fade. I don't understand why grown-ups look like they've lost something. I want a life where I don't lose anything important. I really believe I can do that. I really do. I know everyone says kids don't know much, but I think I know enough to choose differently. I look at my parents and I love them, but I also whisper to myself, I won't live like that. Not tired, not disappointed, not stuck. I want a different life, a better one. One I won't grow out of.
Funny thing is, I remember that kid. I can almost hear him lying on the floor, drawing futures like they were easy roads you just had to follow. He was so sure he wouldn't end up like his parents. I don't blame him. I used to look at my father's tired eyes and think they were a choice he made. I didn't know they came from years of trying and years of trying after that. I thought effort worked like magic. You want something badly enough, and the world rearranges itself for you. Turns out the world doesn't do much rearranging. You're the one who bends. The first real choice. It wasn't dramatic. There was no big moment, no fork in the road with a sign saying, dreams this way and compromise that way. It was small, a practical decision. I picked a university that was close and affordable. I told myself I'd transfer later to the place I really wanted. I didn't. Then I took a job that wasn't terrible but wasn't me either. I told myself it was temporary, a stepping stone. I gave it 5 years, then 10. It turns out life doesn't freeze while you figure things out. Days keep passing even when you aren't moving. People talk about compromises like they're these grand sacrifices. Most of mine were tiny, almost invisible. I said yes to a project I didn't care about because it paid well. I said no to a trip because maybe next year. I postponed conversations. I postponed changes. I postponed myself. You'd be amazed how easy it is to postpone yourself. One day you look up and realize you've been doing it for decades. Time, it doesn't just pass. It accumulates. Little habits stack up, the safe choices, the quiet fears, the things you avoid without even naming why. I was always waiting for a better moment, a clearer sign, a version of me that felt ready. Ready never came. I used to imagine that adult life would feel like standing tall, chest forward, fearless. Instead, it felt like managing, like making sure nothing fell apart, like keeping the bills paid and the peace kept and the days steady. You trade adventure for stability without even noticing the moment it happens. I thought I'd stay brave, curious, all those bright words kids use. Instead, I got careful. Careful feels responsible at first, then it starts to feel like shrinking. I don't even know when I stopped drawing or when I stopped planning trips I never took. I became someone who looked tired in the mornings, someone who dug through drawers for keys that were always in the same place. The kind of adult my childhood self promised he'd never become. There were things I meant to do. Tell someone I loved them before they walked away. Visit a certain city before it turned into a memory someone else had. Change careers before the years glued me in place. But life kept saying, "Not today," and I kept agreeing. I always thought I had more time. That's the biggest illusion. Thinking time is something you have instead of something that keeps slipping through your fingers, whether you notice or not. I didn't become a bad person, just an ordinary one. And I don't say that with bitterness. There's a quiet truth in it. I didn't become my own hero. I didn't become my own disappointment either. I became a version of my parents, tired, trying, doing my best with what I understood at the time. The life I wanted drifted one way, the life I lived drifted another, and somewhere in the middle I learned to stop looking too closely at the distance between them. Funny thing, the kid in me thought being an adult meant being free, but most days adulthood felt like keeping a boat afloat by plugging tiny holes with whatever you had on hand. Doesn't mean it was meaningless, just not the story he pictured. If he's still listening somewhere inside me, I hope he doesn't take it too hard. I didn't choose wrong. I just chose what was right at the moment over and over again, until the moments ran out and the choices added up to a life. Not the different life I wanted, not the worse one either, just mine. There's something I never admitted when I was younger. How often I was afraid. Not the kind of fear you can point to, like monsters in closets or getting lost in a supermarket. It was quieter. It hid behind words like practical and responsible. When I said, "I'll do it later," what I really meant was, I don't trust myself enough to try now. I thought adults grew out of that. Turns out fear just changes its clothes. The years blurred, not all at once, more like a slow fade, where one season looks almost the same as the one before it. Work days with their predictable patterns. Weekends used for rest instead of discovery. Friends drifting away not because of fights, but because everyone was busy building their own versions of the life they ended up with. I kept telling myself I still had time to choose differently. I just needed to think, to plan, to wait for the right moment. Funny how waiting becomes a habit. I had dreams once, real ones, the kind you sketch on napkins, the kind you talk about with shining eyes. They didn't leave suddenly, they dissolved. I stopped mentioning them out loud. I told myself they were childish, unrealistic, or that I didn't want them anymore. But if I'm honest, I just didn't want to face the weight of how far I'd drifted. It's easier to say I changed than to say I didn't try. Relationships were another place where time slipped quietly. I loved people, truly, but I kept parts of myself hidden because being fully seen felt risky. I didn't want to disappoint anyone. I didn't want to ask for too much. I didn't want to be the reason something fell apart. So I learned to settle for half connection, safe, steady, polite. The kind that doesn't hurt, but also doesn't fill you. Looking back, I wish I had risked the kind of love that could break your heart. I thought safety was the same as happiness. It isn't. My parents grew older. I remember visiting them and realizing in one ordinary moment that they had lived the same kind of quiet, compromised life I was living. Not because they lacked courage, but because they did what they thought was right at the time. They weren't tragic. They weren't heroic. They were just human. And suddenly I saw myself in them. Everything I once promised I'd escape. Not trapped, just shaped by the same gravity that pulls all of us. Responsibility, fear, comfort, routine. There's a strange tenderness in that realization. I used to judge them. I shouldn't have. They were carrying things I never noticed, worries about bills, about each other, about me. And now, here I am with the same tired mornings, the same quiet sigh before starting the day. I didn't become them because I failed. I became them because that's what happens when you keep choosing the smaller path, the safer one, the path that feels reasonable in the moment. Something I rarely admit out loud. I miss the boy I used to be. Not in a dramatic, nostalgic way, just quietly. He had sharp edges and bright colors. I've softened, faded a bit. I'm not unhappy. I'm just aware of the pieces of myself that never made it into adulthood. I thought I'd hold on to them, but life has a way of asking you to put things down so your hands are free to carry what's necessary. I wanted a different life, and maybe, in some small corner, I still do. But this is the one I built, brick by brick, compromise by compromise, year by year. If I could go back and sit with that kid, the one so certain he knew how to avoid all this, I don't think I'd warn him. I wouldn't want to take away his hope. Hope is what carried me further than I realized, even when it didn't lead exactly where I meant to go. Sometimes I wonder if he'd still recognize me now. Maybe he would. Maybe he'd look at me the way he looked at Dad, curious, a little sad, trying to understand why I look so tired. And maybe I'd tell him gently that being tired doesn't mean your life was empty. It just means you lived it the best way you knew how. You know, the strangest thing about getting old is how quiet the world becomes, not in a sad way. More like the volume turns down on everything you once thought was urgent. Careers, deadlines, other people's expectations. All those things I used to run toward or run from. They don't speak as loudly anymore. What stays loud are the tiny moments I didn't notice at the time. The way sunlight used to fall on the kitchen table. The sound of someone laughing from another room. The evenings I rushed through because I thought something more important was waiting somewhere else. Turns out, nothing more important was waiting. Those little moments were the important things, and I walked past most of them. There were turning points in my life, real ones, but I didn't recognize them until they'd passed. A phone call I didn't return. A job offer I accepted because it was easier than figuring out what I actually wanted. A relationship I let fade because speaking honestly felt harder than keeping the peace. People talk about big choices defining a life, but honestly, the small choices did most of the work. The easy yeses, the comfortable nos, the days I told myself, I'm too tired to think about that right now. A lifetime can slip through those cracks without you noticing. I used to think regret was this sharp, dramatic feeling. It isn't. Real regret is soft. It's a slow ache you learn to carry without dropping anything. I don't sit here wishing I'd become famous or brilliant or extraordinary. I don't even miss the things I never achieved. I miss the versions of myself I abandoned because I thought growing up meant choosing only one path and sticking to it no matter what. I didn't realize you're allowed to begin again at any age. I waited too long to understand that. There are people I wish I had loved more boldly. I gave safe love, polite, predictable, presentable. I thought being steady was the same as being devoted. I didn't understand that some people don't want your caution. They want your heart, messy and real. There were things I should have said when the moment was warm, instead of counting on another chance. Another chance is a myth young people believe in. I believed in it longer than I should have. And about that boy, the one lying on the floor with crayon marks on his fingers, swearing he'd never become tired or ordinary. I think about him often. He wanted a different life, and I thought I'd failed him because I didn't give him one. But now, with all these years behind me, I think he misunderstood what different meant. He thought different meant exciting, shining, nothing like the life his parents lived. He didn't know that even ordinary lives ask for quiet courage every single day. The courage to stay, to endure, to try again, to show up for people, to keep going even when the dreams fade. If he was sitting across from me now, the way he imagined conversations with future him would go, I think he'd ask, "So, did we make it?" And I'd have to answer honestly, "Not in the way you pictured." I didn't become the fearless adventurer or the brilliant creator or the man who always had time. I became someone who worked, worried, loved imperfectly, tried often, avoided things he shouldn't have avoided, stayed longer than he should have stayed, and grew older faster than he expected. I became human, that's all. And maybe he'd look disappointed at first, but then he'd listen. And maybe he'd understand that even the life he didn't want still had laughter in it, still had people in it, still had mornings where the light was soft enough to make everything feel possible again, even if I never said it out loud. I don't have advice. I don't know how someone else should live. I just know how I did. I know where I drifted, where I settled, where I hesitated. I know what I postponed until postponing became permanent. I know what I finally understood when the understanding didn't change much anymore. If you're still somewhere near the beginning of your own road, if you're still young enough to believe you won't repeat the lives that came before you, maybe you won't, maybe you will. I won't tell you what to do with that. I don't have a lesson to hand over. I just have this one quiet truth. I wanted a different life, and I lived the one I made instead. If you're standing where I once stood, you still have time to choose your own way. But I won't tell you how. That's the one thing you have to find without me.